No, well, it's good. Thank you all for being here and for your participation over the last 2 days. There's been a lot of content. Fortunately, we're ending with a great session and a great speaker. So let me do an introduction, a proper introduction. Tyler, your career is so impressive. I'm going to read it so I don't miss anything. So Tyler Sloat was named COO and CFO in 2024 after joining the company as CFO in 2020. He oversees accounting, finance, IT, workplace, corporate strategy, revenue operations, and revenue enablement teams. Tyler's a seasoned cloud finance leader and board member who has played a pivotal role in several successful IPOs and acquisitions. Previously, he was CFO at Zora and has held executive finance roles with technology leaders, including NetApp and Siebel Systems. Tyler has served on the board of Oanda, Compass, and other companies, and currently invests in and advises a variety of private companies. He holds an MBA from Stanford and is a CPA in the state of California. That does deserve a round of applause, I agree. All right, well, Tyler, first, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been, I think, Freshworks has been a customer for maybe over a decade. You all were one of our first early customers.
I think vice versa, right, as well. I think the companies, were founded at very similar times in Chennai and literally and figuratively kind of tied at the hip. Chargebee's been a wonderful partner to us.
Yeah, no, we're honored and privileged to be able to support your growth. So it's been very fun, and we're grateful to have you here today.
Awesome.
All right, well, let's get into it. I think you have a really unique vantage point where, you were at Zora for 10 years. And I remember we were talking a few weeks ago, and you were saying, Brian, 10 years ago, I was educating people on why they needed a subscription, right? Or what was recurring revenue. And now here we are, 15, 20 years later, and we're talking about really redefining what is subscription, redefining what is ARR. Notably, a lot of the large enterprise software players, Salesforce just launched outcome-based pricing, usage-based pricing. So I'd love your point of view on just the evolution of subscription, the evolution of recurring revenue, given your vantage point. And then also, how you think about some of the changes to pricing and packaging, and where do you see it, going in the future?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Zora 15 years ago, and I joined when they're about $4 million in ARR. And it really was kind of a three-part story. The first part was, hey, everybody should move to subscription, and here's why. The second is, when you do move, you're gonna need a new system to be able to iterate on your pricing and packaging strategy. And then the third was, hey, when you realize you gotta move and you need a new system, choose Zora, right? And that's a very difficult kind of three-step thing to go execute. You could be really good at number one and still not getting benefit, right? And good at number one and number two and still not getting any benefit. The reality was subscription was already around, right? But that businesses only really knew subscription through what was SaaS. My first iteration, I was thinking about this, was I was a controller of a company in the late 90s. And at that time, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a huge Y2K scare that all the systems were going to break, right? And a lot of the systems were kind of a two-digit year multiple. And if you had any old system that you're running on, that 2 digits, when you actually flip to the year 2000, it's like, what is it going to do? It's just going to explode. And so I had to look at other systems to go put in. We had gone public, and that was my first introduction to what kind of SaaS was supposed to be, which was ASP, right? Which is, application service provider, where you still have to buy all the software. We're just going to host it for you. So that, which didn't really make sense, but it was a first iteration of subscription models. Before that, it was support and maintenance streams, which software started to add on to. Next was, though, at a couple years later, found myself at Siebel, and actually Madhuri was there with me. Not with me, I was more there with her. That they asked me to go run finance for Siebel On Demand. And we bought a company called Upshot, and we bought a company called Ineto. And it was really in reaction to this little knit of a company called Salesforce that had just started. And we formed a joint venture with IBM. And that was my first kind of exposure to how different these models could be from first a pricing and packaging, but from a go-to-market execution perspective. So sitting at a company that's living and dying literally by the $20 million deal at the end of each quarter, and then try to have an impact with a $50 per user per month kind of business model that you're trying to get some influence over. It was kind of a failure, as you could see where Siebel is today. If you bring that forward, it's just been iterations all along the way where, okay, everybody gets SaaS now. Nobody's really buying much on-prem software. They're still out there. But even the on-prem is like a term license thing. But this is just iterations, right? And at Zuora, one of the biggest iterations that we saw was IoT, right? It was just like the latest and greatest thing is that every single hardware manufacturer is going to light up their devices, and they're going to monetize these devices from data that they're going to get that they could then monetize through a software and subscription service. I kind of look at what we're seeing with AI as just the next iteration of this. 5 years from now, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I can guarantee it'll be something new. And the common theme there is that you have to be able to iterate, and you have to be able to actually take advantage through pricing and packaging to be able to kind of protect your business model.
It's a great segue. One of the core themes from the last 2 days was just about iteration, agility, testing, and learning. It sounds easy, but we know how hard it is, right? I think one of the greatest frustrations is, especially today, people are trying to move fast. There's startups coming with aggressive pricing, challenging incumbents. Krish, one of his second observation in his keynote was reflecting on last year's Open, which we talked about the importance of alignment, right? Alignment of the CFO, Office of the CFO, finance, product, IT, RevOps, GTM. In the last session, there was talk about the modern CFO. You obviously went from CFO to COO. So put your CFO hat on for us, or sorry, COO hat on for us. How do you think about where pricing and packaging should sit? What are some of the unlocks to drive agility? When should you start thinking about pricing and packaging? Krish also had a stat that historically a lot of customers revisit it every year. Now we're having many of our customers say, we have a steering committee, and every 2 weeks we're looking at pricing and packaging. So just would love some of your experience on what drives agility, where should pricing and packaging sit, and especially as companies have evolved. Because what I love about your experience is you have worked in small companies and grown them, right? Taken them public. So would love your point of view on the whole pricing and packaging and agility piece.
Okay. That felt like an investor question with like 30 different pieces.
Yeah.
I think, so you first ask, okay, where does pricing and packaging live? And you can translate that to kind of who owns it. It is a shared ownership in my mind. I do believe that product leaders need to understand their markets and the competitive dynamics around those markets, but also be able to kind of understand as they are innovating and building, what should the future look like? And so the initial price list, right, of those products, I do believe products should own those. But that's kind of where I think and that's a collaborative effort, right? There's going to be, a lot of finance work done and other work done. And Moderary talked about operations, where you don't want that to be an inhibitor for any capability for you to go execute on what you should be doing from a pricing and packaging perspective. So when you say, okay, really who owns it? Maybe the price list is owned by product, but the operationalization of everything you're trying to go do, and then what the business model impact has got to be a shared ownership. The biggest mistakes, and at Freshworks we're also guilty of this, is for product people to think that they have to build pricing into their products. And I just mentioned, like, the only thing that we know is a constant is that there will be iteration specifically around pricing and packaging. And the packaging part is that the products have to innovate and continue to actually, grow from a technology perspective to stay, current and have the right to win. But the packaging actually could take a whole bunch of different flavors of whatever you have to be able to actually match the competitive dynamics or the optimal business model outcome that you want. In order to do that, you can't have hard-coded things, or you won't be able to iterate. And so the feedback that I give is like, hey, products, go build your products, but just do feature functionality flags. And those flags should be, really up to the way you price and package, and the product shouldn't care about it. And that, I think, is one of the bigger mistakes that companies make. Because again, I think the only constant is going to be is that there's going to be change from a pricing and packaging perspective.
Well, let's spend some more time on Freshworks then, as you get into that. Last year, you guys announced a very focused product strategy. So would love to just understand what led you to that, how's it going, and then also how are you thinking about AI in the context of that?
Sure. I'll cover the first part first and then the AI part second. If you look at us, you could think we're relatively simple, right? We are a software provider, a SaaS software provider. But when you really break it down, we've got, kind of two main product lines, what we call CX, which are customer-facing products, and EX, which are employee-facing products. Within those product lines, we are selling from the SMB all the way up to the large enterprise. And we're doing it on a kind of geographic basis. So Moderator mentioned 70,000 plus customers. They are all over the world. Even within those products, from a pricing and packaging perspective, we have just very simple software that is, sold on a monthly or an annual and sometimes quarterly and semi-annual basis. But within there, we have one-time charges, which is professional services, right? We have usage-based business charges, which could be our day pass, fresh phone, WhatsApp, things like that. We have consumption-based products that are actually with a time delineation to them, which is also some of our new kind of Freddy AI agent products. And we now have term license products, right? Which is a company we bought last year, and that until we actually move it to the cloud, it will be a component of term license. When you think about all these components, anything about the products that we have and the way we bring them to market is actually very complex. And so being able to all bring that in and simplify it internally is actually quite difficult sometimes. On the AI side of things, AI is kind of, number one, near and dear to us, right? But number two, something that we have to be at the forefront or we won't exist. We, at the core, are an agent-based model, and it's a user-based model. And the bear case against user-based models, specifically CX, is that, co-pilot capabilities would actually cannibalize the need for agents, right? And so to recognizing, okay, maybe that might happen at some point in time, instead of running away from new technology, we have to embrace it and actually try to be at the forefront. And that is why we have, our Freddy AI agent, which I already mentioned is a consumption-based, which is really at the front end of bots, which we're, leaning towards where they're not, structured bots anymore, now conversational bots, all the way through to all of our co-pilot features that we sell as an add-on today, and then also include a lot of that feature functionality in some additions. And I think this is where everything's going, and the question is going to be, how are we going to iterate on pricing and packaging going forward to make sure that the products have to be there? How do we actually optimize our business model with those products?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure you're also a buyer of a lot of software. How do you think about predictability, right? Because I think we, the vendors, the software companies, want predictability, right? I think buyers want predictability, but with this usage outcome, people also want to pay for the value that they're getting. So as a buyer, how are you scrutinizing and thinking about, okay, yeah, we're gonna do usage, buy software that has usage, and maybe there's less predictability, but we're only gonna pay for what we consume, versus the more traditional model where, if you're AWS or cloud, you're buying up to amount of credits. Just curious how you think about that from a buyer standpoint.
Yeah, I think there are consumption things that introduce themselves into the market, and then it becomes natural. You're going to do by outcome, or you're going to do by consumption. But I think if you look at all the businesses, they tend to revert to some type of consumption plus commitment. Yep. And that commitment has to be, either through it has to be time-based to really get a recurrence to your business model. The reason that happens is, one, through predictability, because no CFO wants to be surprised, but also in terms of kind of what their costs are going to be. But on the other end, the seller actually has to have, kind of predictability to their revenue. The other reason is you need to be able to motivate, say, salespeople. They have to go close a deal. If they're closing a deal that actually has no commitment, how are you going to pay them, right? And so you have to think about all these operational nuances, but the reality is it all comes down to predictability. And as well as the fact that costs actually come down over time, right? And so things that you commit to should be a partnership. And if you actually commit to something, then the partnership is, hey, I'll give you something. If you give me something, you're giving me a commitment. And in return, right, I'm going to give you better pricing. And I think you see everything revert to that over time.
Yeah, that's great. Really good insight. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to get some interaction and questions from the audience, if you're okay with that. Okay, excellent. So you've had multiple successful IPOs. I think there's many scaling businesses in the audience who are thinking about, what do I need to do to prepare? There's hopefully the capital markets are opening up under new administration.
I mean, everybody should go public today.
And that's right. Today was a good day on Wall Street. We'll take that. But what's on the checklist? What's the guidance you would give to people in the audience as they go fundraise and think about their next move, whether that's public, private, strategic?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about scaling businesses, right? At the end of the day, it always comes down to tech. I've been with 5 private companies now. 3 of them we've taken public, 1 we sold, and 1 was a lot of fun. And I think about it's like how have you chosen businesses? And I have this stupid thing called the 5-finger framework. I look for a huge market that's ripe for disruption. I then look for the product that's going to go attack that market that needs solution. 3, I look for the team that's building the product that's going to be going to attack that market. 4, I look at the investors who are supporting the team that are building the product to attack that market. And 5th, I look at the role. And in that order. The reality is right now we are in a world where there's a new impact, which is AI. And everywhere you look at every roadmap, there has to be some type of AI component. Every board meeting, it's like, what are you guys doing with AI, right? And I think it's super, super important, but I don't think it's that much different than some of the other things that we've seen in the past. You could even bring it back to multi-tenant capabilities within SaaS, right? That until you can do that, you're not gonna be able to scale. And so when you look at this, again, embrace it, right? But don't actually get enveloped with just doing that. It was really interesting. We had a CAB last year, and we have a lot of wonderful AI features, and really engaging with, and our CAB is our customer advisory board, and we bring in our largest customers and go engage with them, some small ones too, but some of the heavier usage. And the reminder was, hey, Freshworks, we love all this stuff, and we're actually using it, it's helping us, but do not forget about the core. So say for CX, don't forget about core ticketing, we still need that, right? And so as companies, as folks are building their companies, don't get distracted from your original thesis, because if that problem is still there, you gotta keep actually heads down to go solve that problem. But you have to be embracing all of the new things that are out there that are actually gonna allow you to go faster or do it better.
That's great wisdom, thank you. What about from the audience? You guys are that thirsty? Come on. Back there.
Hi guys, so we've had 2 days of really great content. What are the biggest takeaways that you've had from today?
Yeah, Tyler, you want me to start? Yeah. Tyler's a busy man, so I'm not sure he was there all day today, so we'll give him an out on this one. I think the agility piece is probably the top. If we put $1 in the jar every time the word agility was used, we'd all be doing pretty well today. So I think that to me is really the way I interpret that is you need a billing system that enables go-to-market agility, but also informs pricing and packaging and monetization. And then what I think, as I've been talking to folks who watch the product keynote, a lot of them are very excited about not just billing automation and your billing system being able to keep up with the pace of go-to-market, but also some of the growth capabilities. Because having one integrated platform that allows you to automate billing, take data signals to inform monetization, and then go experiment and price test on that monetization, is what I'm hearing from the audience as I've polled them. They might be just telling me what I want to hear, but I think there's a lot of power in that integrated approach between billing automation, data, and monetization. I think the other piece on the James Clear piece is just, incremental improvement. I think we should apply a lot of those principles to monetization. So that was a couple key takeaways.
I'll add one.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 panels ago, the question about AI and automation came up. And I think that is just going to be consistent with any company out there. And it's not about AI and automation. It's about how do you do more with less, and how do you become more efficient and more productive as an organization. We did internally go through an exercise recently, and we covered it at a managed offsite of like, what are all of the uses that we have internally? A lot of them are our own product. Madhuri was, she even highlighted her team is one of the biggest users of our own Freddy Copilot products internally, whether it's, Summarizer, Next Best Response, Tone Enhancer, things like that. But it's also being, hey, a provider of AI, you also have to be a consumer, and then every single vendor that we have, we should be demanding that they provide us capabilities to actually be more efficient internally. And I thought that's going to be a common theme, because I think belts are going to tighten, right? This is going to be an influence. I talked to a big company today, and their CIO is under a mandate of no spend, right? This is a brand new thing just with volatility, and I think we all have to kind of get ready for it, Yep,
that's great.
Tyler, thanks for doing this. Given today's market conditions, what advice do you have as a capital allocator? What advice do you have companies that go through a transformation today, especially when you have tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, and you have existing revenue to protect and certain investments to make, while also going through the type of transformation that you need to go through across everything, right, from product, go-to-market, business model, and everything? What advice do you have for people when it comes to thinking about transformation through the lens of capital allocation?
Yeah, transformation through the lens of capital allocation. I think that was the main subject. You should be up on stage with us right now, by the way. Look, just to play off of what I just talked about, we had a board meeting this morning. We go through our Q1 results, and we have earnings in a couple of weeks. But volatility comes up. And what do we think about, bottom line, which we're doing really, really well, as well as, revenue growth and whatnot. And a couple of our board members, one of them was a CEO of a company back in 2008. That was a very dire time. And it got to a point where, there's reactions around, how are we going to survive? We got to stop hiring, all this kind of stuff. I actually think first and foremost, the CFO's job, COOs, or any execs, is to be in control of your business model, which also means being in control of your balance sheet and never have to actually put yourself in a situation where you are going to be at the mercy of capital allocators. And so then you actually have to make sure your capital allocation internally is really solid. And so that means be in control of your own destiny. So have enough capital so that you can survive through a storm and that you are in control of that destiny. Right after that, though, I think you have to take opportunities to grow when everything else is doing really, really poorly, especially if what you're offering is a capability to companies to grow more efficiently, grow faster, or provide a product, which we do, at a much more efficient rate that is really easy to use, easy to implement, and easy to buy. And so that is a lean-in opportunity to me, as long as our balance sheet is protected and we don't have to rely on anything. And so I have no problem as a CFO, go allocate the funds to actually lean in to situations that I think there's opportunities. It would be the same if you were in real estate and you were just hoarding cash for a long time, the real estate market drops and you just buy up as much as you can, right? To me, it's not that dissimilar, and that is what I would do. But first and foremost, you got to be in control of your own destiny.
So I guess for every department within a company, there's new agentic systems that are becoming available. But ultimately, there's only so much transformation a company can go through at a time. So how do you guide the team on which, what sequence to go through when it comes to taking on new initiatives to bring efficiency into various departments?
Yeah, I guess I'm relatively protectionist when it comes to that. I mean, I think if you're going to execute, you got to execute really, really well, and whatever you do it well. Working with Ashwin, right, who's our CIO, like it's really okay. We have some massive transformational projects. So how do we actually not dilute those by adding a whole bunch of other things? At the same time, you have to have empathy for any leader that really wants to go execute on something and change their own function. And so you have to come up with a business model internally that allows for that kind of change. So whether it's, hey, IT can't be responsible for this, so here's a governance model around how we implement things, and then, okay, maybe we actually spend a little bit externally to get things done, or we at least put it on the roadmap and listen to folks. Secondarily, though, we have way too many systems, as I'm sure everybody in here does. And so there's like, start with what we have, right? As opposed to looking at the new shiny object, can we actually make the object we already bought actually work? And if we can't, then they have a broken promise to us, right? And so, if we're gonna buy new, then you gotta get rid of two. And that is a model I love. Again, we're not perfect at it, but we have gone iterations over the years of eliminating literally hundreds of different software vendors. So focus, finish something, then move to the next. Knowing that, okay, you're not gonna be able to transform every single group, right, at the same time.
I think we have time for one more question.
What's one area you're each investing in this year that you're most excited about, or you think is going to have the biggest impact?
Yeah, sure. Since my chief marketing officer asked that question.
That's a leading question.
Yeah. We are actively investing in branding and awareness, which this was a softball for me. As you can tell, we're pretty proud and excited about the market opportunity that we have. This event was a big success because every company has to rethink monetization. Every company right now is reinventing how they make money. And agility, you have to go fast. You have to try new things. And so we're well known, thanks to G2 and good analyst ratings, for having a really great product. We've got really loyal customers, which we're grateful for. My goal, Guy's goal, is for more people to know about the value that we add to customers. And we've been so grateful to have many of our customers tell their story on stage today, and we want to do more of that. So I would say that's number one. And number two is, we're just continuing to invest in our post-sales team, right? Retaining customers and making good on the promises that we commit to. That's how you grow your brand, right? That's how you grow your reputation. It's great to talk about the great stories, but you need the great stories. You need happy customers. You need customers that are getting value. And so I think we're fortunate being a private company that the companies we target are companies we can make successful. And we want to continue to do that and ensure we're making good on those commitments and promises we've made to our customers.
We're actually doing a bunch of stuff around brand as well. I think a company, that we feel right on the doorstep of being $1 billion organization, ARR-wise, that from a brand perspective, I'll still run into people all the time who think we're like a food delivery business. And so, there's clearly some work to do there. We also have a name that is different from our products, right? And so we have to actually spend a little bit to actually get the awareness that is out there, and we are doing that. Mika, our CMO and Chief Customer Officer, is leading that, and we're kind of labeling it under an entire umbrella called it's the uncomplicated movement, which is what we're trying to provide for our customers, is truly an uncomplicated experience and delivering a lot of value. At the same time, we are also very focused on what the next phase of the company is, and we think that next phase is how do we get to $5 billion? And it's investing this year based on, you said, a very focused strategy last year, which is really, let's really simplify the way we're looking at our products and how we're offering them to the market. That resulted in us actually doing a reduction in October, and it had nothing to do with expense. It had everything to do with focus. We found we'd woken up one day, we had way too many people, we're getting in our own way, and we also didn't have the people probably who were gonna be the ones who could take us on this journey. And so we actually went through that process with the anticipation of rehiring in the right areas at the right levels. And that's what we've been investing in so far this year, and we'll continue to do so.
Great. Well, Tyler, thank you very much for
thank you for having me.
The partnership. Yeah. Thank you for the time. Really insightful discussion. And thanks, everybody, for the engagement.